Okay, this video is probably 10 years old. I don't know when it was made, if it was made before the tractor videos or after. I might have been digging the ditch for the gutters. I had to put gutters on the house. When I found out that the lot was compromised by the grading, I was challenged by the property line because the property line was high. I was challenged that there was a dirt berm between my patio and the property line, and I had a challenge of trying to compensate for my pad elevation, my finished floor elevation. I had to compensate for that because it had been lowered. So the starting point for all drainage had been lowered, and they added a berm between me and the property line was high. And this little spiel as we watch me do all this work. This was one afternoon. I stayed pretty busy. This was my workout room. I didn't have to join a gym during this period of time. I was probably 65 years old then. I'm 75 now. And again, for anybody who's out there, King Charles' birthday is the 14th of November, 1948. My birthday is the 23rd of October, 1948. So I'm at least 3 weeks older than King Charles. We're both Scorpios, and we're both rats. Okay? I always relate my life to his because we were born so close together, and I'm senior to him by about 3 weeks. I've followed him ever since I found out that we were both Scorpios or rats. I more or less followed his life, and I see that I pray for him. I really do. Because I'm praying for myself. I'm 75. Nobody's told me yet that I have cancer, but my father had it. So I'm waiting for the clock to run out. But I just want to let you know, I've been around. I'm not stupid. I consider that I have good taste. I consider that I'm honest. I try to be honest. I'm trying to be a good citizen. But I don't like being used. I don't like being exploited. I don't like being lied to or lied about or compromised that way, because anybody that knows me, and especially employers, would know that I'm honest to a fault. I'll risk losing my job for honesty. Okay? And so I'm going to discuss the dishonesty that I felt that was visited on me by I could call them racketeers, I could call them a syndicate, I could call them all these negative things, the mob, the white mafia, whatever you want to call it. But there was a lot of people that knew what they were doing to me. They knew what they were doing. They knew we're screwing this guy. All right? We don't know him. We don't care. He's an outsider. Anybody's an outsider, it's a mark as far as we're concerned. Never give a sucker an even break. We're not going to give him an even break. He was stupid enough to give us $30,000 up front before we did anything. And the first thing we did when we got that $30,000 is we lowered his finished floor elevation to make it easier to store water on his property. Now, if this video should fall into the hands of somebody that's on the town council or whatever, I have documents to prove all this. I have documents to prove it. Okay? I have documents to prove that the building permit for my house, I happen to get it in my hands, a stamped building permit, Buckeye stamp with a signature, can't tell who it is, but it doesn't agree or it's non-compliant with the master CC&R document, which is the grading map and for the community, for the 1,100 houses in the Sundance Active Adult. Every one of those houses had a finished floor elevation assigned that you couldn't touch, written in stone. And without my knowledge, about 2 weeks after they had $30,000 in my cash and my first down payment, five payments of about 150 each. My first one they had in their hand when they went downtown and got permission on the permit to lower my finished floor elevation. Where it says on the front of the permit, and all the engineers and anybody who is in the planning part of this project should understand, we can't do that, but we're going to do it to him. We don't like Californians coming in and outbidding us. As far as I'm concerned, this urban plan wasn't a good fit out here. This urban plan where everything had been planned like you were going to take it out somewhere closer to Phoenix where you were under MAG rules. That plan, that urban plan, the trails, walking trails, the emergency exits, all the drainage features. If there were if there were retention basins, they were documented on the plan. There were no rogue retention bases anywhere. Now, what you're seeing me do right now with that jackhammer, I'm going to juggle that jackhammer probably for the next 45 minutes. What I'm doing is I'm making a deep well. I'm trying to get a square cubical void where I can fill up with leach rock. Okay, big chunks of rock. Because this ditch that I'm digging was years after the tractor. And why I'm digging this ditch is for the gutters. When I found out that the lot was disadvantaged on purpose through the documentation and from what a licensed surveyor told me with 35 years experience in the business, from what he told me is your lot's been disadvantaged. Okay, they're using you. In so many words. He didn't have to give me a big lecture. As soon as he said, you're it, they made you it. That's all he had to say was, they made you it. I filled in all the blanks. I worked as a federally licensed aircraft mechanic for 30 years. I got my license in about 1985. I was licensed airframe and power plant in 1985, and I worked with that license until about 2012, 2013. So I worked under that license, and as a federally licensed aircraft mechanic, there's not a lot of extemporaneous things that go on. I mean, You have, every time you touch an airplane, when you get done, you got to sign for what you did. Every time. No matter how menial the job or how difficult. You might be working on a project that's going to take 30 different people, 2 weeks of multiple shifts to complete the project. And you do one part of the project at a time, and you're doing it per a wiring diagram, through pictures, through a prototype. I'm a little out of sequence here. The video's got a little out of order. But I was used to that doctrine, that culture, that once it's on the plan, it can be changed. And you have to sign for what you do. And if they tell me to run a wire and I have to crawl down into the pit where it's all greasy, dirty, cramped, I get claustrophobic, and it's a ground wire, and I have to take it down to the beefiest part of the plane, down on the keel where there's the most metal. That's where you want a real positive ground, and I don't want to do it. And instead of grounding it down there because I don't want to spend the time, I don't want to get dirty, I don't like it down there, so I ground it up near where I decided, where I try to outsmart the engineer from the beginning. And I ground this electronic component. We're doing a mod, we're adding this it's like video entertainment system, an audio entertainment system that draws a ton of voltage and power, like Swiss Air. That's what happened to Swiss Air. Sort of like that. I don't think they had the video system grounded. They probably saved money running the ground wire to the local area. They had a floating ground. Maybe on the prints it said you have to have a heavy-duty ground wire going to the keel of the airplane, right above the landing gear, where it's the beefiest, where there's the most metal, where we got most of the ground where we can just dissipate that energy. No, somebody decided I'm not going to spend the money to do that. Well, that's what I'm doing, is I'm making a positive ground right now. That ditch is going to be for the gutters. Well, that's what I'm doing. I've been, like I said, it was my workout room. But this urban, let me tell you, I jump all around, but this was an urban plan, and there were grounds for every lot. What I'm doing is I'm going to make sure I've got a positive ground. We're not going to have a floating ground up here where water comes off my roof and it's grounded 10 feet from my patio. Okay? From now on, I'm going to be able to put a pipe, a ground wire from the corner of my house that's going to ground all the water off my property. All right? I put up with this kind of maintenance. I saw it so much, where people would take shortcuts. And this was a shortcut. And it was, to me, devious. It was dishonest. It was dishonest to me. It just showed your culture out here that people from the outside, California investors, are hated. We don't like them. Anytime a California investor comes in and outbids us, we get even with them. And I was naive. I wasn't a desert person. It took me 10 years to figure this out. And one last thing about a HOA. What I found out here after 10 years, I have no remedy for in the court. No lawyer will go near it because of statute of limitation. Let me tell you about the statute of limitation with a HOA. You could put a potted plant on the end of your stoop on the first day you move in and not get permission of it. And, well, we'll stop there. What I was going to say is, we've run out of this video. I'm going to finish. You can put a potted plant in your yard the first year you're here, sitting on the end of your stoop, and you never got permission for it. And everybody got used to seeing it. Everybody in the neighborhood got used to seeing it. And even the people that went around the neighborhood, I'll get over this while I'm talking. The people, the slave chasers that go in every week, their job is to, the slave chasers, their job is to write people up. Well, you get a new batch of slave chasers. Okay? You get a new batch of slave chasers, and the old group of slave chasers, they took it for granted. Hey, you know, he's had it there forever. We're not going to write it up. We've seen it there forever. We're not going to write it up. Well, what happens? They assign somebody else to do the slave chaser job, to go through the neighborhood every week. And the first thing they see when they drive by your house is newbie who's trying to make points with the HOA. She looks and says that this is a street view of track day that's about at least 2 years old. It was taken this. They restored the drainage function of track day. Well, anyway, the new people, their new assigned people, maybe the old slave chasers that were enforcing the slave codes, what I call the slave codes, they have so many rules in an HOA. And what I was getting at is whatever's been done to you. Like this is what was done to me. Where this tree is was supposed to be an open water channel. They plugged it in. When that urban plan, well, what I'm getting back to with the HOA is, if you find something they did wrong, you only got 2 years, maybe. And most lawyers don't want to even go into construction defects. All right? It's such a rabbit hole to go down. You want to know, you have a lot of proof to do it. But what is different with an HOA is, like I'm getting back to the flower pot. The new code enforcers that they just appointed to go through the neighborhoods every week, they see that flower pot that's been on my stoop for 20 years. And they think it's out of place, or they go and they make a note and they go back into my file and go back 20 years, and they see that in 20 years I never applied to have that pot at the end of my stoop. The HOA, let me tell you, because they've done it to me, and they're doing it to me right now, they can go, there's no time limit on compliance. You're either compliant or you're not, and you're not compliant. You never applied, put an application to have that flower pot on your stoop. You're out of compliance. All right? There's no time limit on compliance. This is a cosmetic item. Okay? That somebody, it went for 20 years unnoticed. Everybody was blind to it, but a new person went to the trouble of looking it up to see if you ever got, and you didn't. So there's another strike against you. Let me tell you, this is what happens in an HOA. They have unlimited authority. And when you get that first document, like I bought in early, I was probably out of the first if it's 1,100 houses, I probably was the first 15 or 20%. These two houses right here that you're looking at, that pad and this pad right here, were, well, no, this pad and this pad. This pad and that pad right here, if you can see the pointer, were the first pads laid in this neighborhood of about 65 houses. We were the first ones. And the first CC&R was very limited. But over the years, what you're restricted to now, I'm going to make a video shortly on all the restrictions that they've written into the codes now. The first batch of CC&Rs I got were so shallow as to detail. But over the years, the last 20 years, anything that's come up on their radar that they don't like, they can add to the slave codes, what I call the slave codes. You can't have a bird feeder. You can't have this. You can't have that. They've got it deep. You can't have wind chime. Things that weren't even on the CC&R 20 years ago, and you went out and bought things and invested, and you're not grandfathered in. Like I said, all they have to do is get a young, ambitious person. I won't blame youth. Anybody that's ambitious, that has that human character flaw, that human factors flaw, where their authority, they dig into things. They want to make sure everybody's following their rules. All right? You have to have permission for everything. Get used to it. I'm 75 years old. All right? I grew up in a little town in upstate New York. I've been single and free all my life. Right now, I got married to a HOA 20 years ago, and because of my point of view that I think you're all a bunch of clowns, everybody in that HOA and the town of Buckeye, and that's from a perspective of a person who is older than King Charles and more or less been everywhere and done everything. But I tried to stay away from getting involved with mobs, okay? Anybody that wanted me to plan and scheme and get under somebody or get behind somebody or try to get somebody fired or try to get me involved with a cause, I usually stayed away from them. I walked away, didn't want anything to do with them. I'm still that way, all right? What happened with this urban plan when it got out here is this guy and this guy right here, these two buyers, are from bucolic places. When the plan got out here, that plan first got out here, the sales office, they had a chance to sell these lots if they got rid of the cart path. Every buyer, this is one of the bigger lots facing the lake. This is the biggest lot, I think, in the whole parcel. And they were made big because there was supposed to be a cart path and a pedestrian goes through here. But I figure they were told that if you buy these lots, forever and ever we'll get rid of this. All right? We want to make a sale. We want to make a sale. And that's what happened. And this is where the water, you see that drain? That's the only drain for 13 acres. It's got a 24-inch pipe right there below that manhole cover that runs down to the lake. If that pipe was to ever fail, the first place the water was going to go out was right here over my lot. Where that cactus is was only about 10 inches, 12 inches above the manhole cover, and it was like 55 feet away. Up here, 29 feet away, right in the middle of what was supposed to be a drainage easement, 29 inches, or 19 inches above the manhole, 29 feet away. 19 inches above the manhole and 29 feet away, and I'm only 12 inches above the manhole and 55. All the water was going to go through here. This is the way Buckeye and everybody in Buckeye and the builder and the golf course and the politicians in Buckeye, everybody said, thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. Welcome to Buckeye. I got drafted once at 19 in a little town just like Buckeye. I was like a piece of lint on their community blanket. You don't belong here. You're a raveling. You're an Irish pennant. You don't belong here. We're going to draft you and sell you down the river. That's what happened to a lot of people in Vietnam. I'm a Vietnam era veteran. I never made it there. I made it as far as Iwakuni. But I saw it all happen on TV, in the newspaper. I was actually there. I went through Paris Island. I went through the draft. I've been there, done that. I got an attitude, all right? And I have an attitude against people who come in from the Midwest and don't want to share. They want to bring their farm with them. It's like, we don't recognize your urban map, even though your urban map, your urban blueprint says there's supposed to be a golf cart path here, an emergency vehicle, emergency rescue and vehicle golf path here. It's supposed to be paved with grouted riprap. It's supposed to be for pedestrians. We don't care. All right? We don't have golf carts going by our patio on our farm back in Nebraska or Colorado. We don't want to see them here. Well, that's what I'm saying about this problem with urbanization. These people aren't ready to urbanize. It's that Midwest coalition. They're all wearing red hats, and they don't want to share. And they're afraid of being replaced. Okay? I'm going to end here. I've said enough. I've said too much. All right.